Good morning, everybody. So, where did we stop in class? We are still dealing with the internal structure of the heart. So, let's do that. First, heart and the internal structure. Let's write it down. Heart, its internal structure. Now, before we get into the internal structure of the heart, we already know a little bit of it in the sense where it is located, how big it is. How big is it? You should know this. It is as big as your, oof, it is as big as your fist. Make a fist. That's how big is your heart. Now, where is it located? Location. This also you should know. It is located in between the lungs. There's something wrong with my pointer. In between the lungs in the thoracic cavity. And it's called mediastinum, right? We've seen this in class. And it is not upright, people, the heart. It shifts a little bit to the left. It looks like it is lying down. If you look at the picture, let's take a look at the picture. Look at that. It is, and these are the lungs, and we have done this in the respiratory system. They are enclosed in the pleural membrane. You can see that here very clearly. And today or right now, we are very interested in the heart. It is in the thoracic region. This is the diaphragm. It's a snug fit, right? And look at this is the apex of the heart, and this is the base of the heart. And because this is slightly tilted to your left. Okay, so that's how your heart is located in the thoracic cavity between the lungs. This region is the mediastinum. Now, back to the board. Then what? Let's talk about the structure. Now let's talk about the internal structure. How many chambers does it have? It has 4 chambers. Let's take a different color. It has 4 chambers. And you already know that 2 upper atria and 2 lower ventricles. Okay, let's look at them more closely. Okay, but before we get into the chambers, we need to talk about the just like the lungs are enclosed in the pleural membrane, the heart is also enclosed in a pericardial membrane. I think we've covered this also in the class. Pericardial membrane. Now, what are these made of? Okay, let's see. It is a double membrane. The outer membrane is called the fibrous pericardium. The inner membrane. Now this is a little tricky. The inner membrane. This is called the serous pericardium. Now, a serous pericardium is divided into two, or splits into two again. Two membranes. Serous pericardium. And let's take a different. They are called. First one is the outer parietal layer and the inner visceral layer. Right? So the outer pericardial layer, if we take this is your fibrous, this is your, oh my god, my drawing is very, very bad. So let's take a picture from the internet. So first let's learn the names and then we'll look at the picture. The outer parietal layer and the inner visceral layer. We have covered this in class. The outer parietal layer fuses with your fibrous membrane, with your fibrous pericardium, and the inner visceral layer, this one, fuses with the outer layer of the heart wall. See, here we are talking about two different things. There is the heart. The heart has a wall, but this one is enclosed in a double membrane. We are still talking about the double membrane here. All the name is a little confusing because we see so many layers here. So, so we'll deal with the heart wall in a little bit, but if you can understand, the double membrane of the heart is not the wall, but what it is enclosed in, has an outer fibrous pericardium and the inner serous pericardium. Inner serous pericardium is split into two, the outer parietal layer and the inner visceral layer. The parietal layer fuses with the fibrous pericardium. The inner visceral layer fuses with the outer layer of the heart, because the heart wall also has three layers. Okay, we'll get to that in a bit. So let's look at the picture so that you get an idea. Where is it? Here we go. So, and now this is the wall of the heart. And this is the double membrane that I am talking about, where the heart is enclosed in. So this is the fibrous layer. See this? This is the fibrous layer. These two comprise of the serous layer. It is split. The serous membrane is split into two, where you have the parietal layer. See this? This is the parietal layer. And this is the visceral layer, where it fuses with the outer layer of the heart. So this space that you see where the serous membrane is split is filled with pericardial fluid. Okay? And this pericardial fluid reduces the friction because the heart is continuously beating. So now comes, let's finish off the wall of the heart while we are still here. There's an endocardium. Okay, this is the wall of the heart I'm talking about now. We're done with the double membrane that the heart is enclosed in. This is the wall of the heart. So this is the endocardium. This is the epicardium. The epicardium fuses with the visceral layer of the serous pericardium. This is the inner endothelial lining along with the basement membrane, and this is the myocardium. So the wall of the heart has three membranes, right? One is the endothelial layer, the muscle layer, and the epicardium, which fuses with the visceral layer of the serous pericardium. Understood? So if we are going from the inside of the heart to the outside, we have endocardium, myocardium, epicardium, visceral layer of the serous pericardium, pericardial fluid, the parietal layer of the serous pericardium, and the fibrous pericardium. Understood? Okay. So these make up the wall of the heart and the membrane it is enclosed in. So if you want to write it down, the layers of the heart wall, don't confuse with the heart wall and the membranous double membrane sac-like structure that it is enclosed in. Okay, so the heart wall has endocardium. It's made up of endothelial cells. The myocardium, the muscle layer, and it is very well developed. And the epicardium, which fuses with the visceral layer. Okay, and the heart muscle, this is very well developed. Why do you think? It's because it's constantly pumping, right? So, and 95% of the heart wall is made up of myocardium. Okay, with that we come to the end of the wall of the heart and the double membrane sac-like structure that is enclosed in. Okay, so now let's go to the internal structure. We have seen we're going from the outside towards the inside, right? We have finished the wall. We have actually finished the outer covering, the inner wall of the heart. Now let's take a peek inside. You already know that heart has four chambers, right? Two auricles, two ventricles. I just mentioned a few minutes ago. The upper chambers are called the atria, and the lower chambers are called the ventricles. The auricles are thin-walled, and they are the receiving chambers. And these are the ventricles, those are below the atria. They are thick-walled, and these are the pumping chambers. That means the atria receive blood from the systemic circulation. They receive the deoxygenated blood from the left and the oxygenated blood from the right. So they're just receiving blood, and they get down into the ventricles through the openings or through the valves into the ventricles, and from the ventricles they're pumped out. From the left side goes to the lungs, and from the right side goes to the all the parts of the body. Okay, so these are called pumping chambers and these are called receiving chambers. Now let's look at the atria one by one. Okay, or the left atrium to be more precise. Now what happens, well, before we Okay. The atria, the left and the right, are separated by a septum, interatrial septum. The atria here, the atria and the ventricles, there is the depression called the coronary sulcus between these two. There is a groove called the coronary sulcus, which you can see from the outside, that differentiates between the atria and the ventricles. The depression or the groove that runs transverse between the atria, the two atria and the two ventricles here. It's called the coronary sulcus. Now, just like this one divides these two, there is a septum, but we are talking about the internal structure now. There is a septum that divides the atria, that runs in between. This is called the interatrial septum, right? Inter means in between, atria, septum, right? The membrane that separates the two. Interatrial septum. Okay, so and the internally you see pectinate. The wall has pectinate ridges, or we'll see the picture in a little bit. Okay, the internal walls of the atria have pectinate muscles or ridges. Okay, so now let's see what this left atrium gets. What are the different vessels that are coming in and the valves that are present in this atria. Okay, so the first there are vessels coming in, okay, into the my writing is getting worse and worse, and my pen isn't working so well either. And they are three vessels. Okay, the first one is superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, and we have coronary veins that get into the sinus, and the sinus opens into the heart. Okay, so three vessels that are carrying blood from all parts of the body, right? We know the systemic circulation, all the deoxygenated blood is collected from all parts of the body through the veins. So there are three of them that open into the left side or left atrium. Okay, so the superior vena cava collects blood from the head, the thorax, and the arms, your forelimbs. The inferior vena cava collects blood from the abdomen downwards. You know, the legs, all the organs present below the abdomen. And the heart also needs blood supply, right? And it is supplied by coronary arteries, and it's collected by coronary veins. And they all collect into a sinus. This sinus opens into the heart. So there are three openings, one for the superior vena cava, one for the inferior vena cava, and one for the coronary veins that come from the sinus. Okay, so this is on the left side, left atria. What happens in the right? Right atrium. Now the right side, if you remember, it gets oxygenated blood, right? This is deoxygenated. So this oxygenated blood, where is it coming from? It is coming from the lungs by two pairs of pulmonary veins. Okay? Now this is important, people, because we need to remember that we usually say veins carry deoxygenated blood, right? Mostly in the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. What happened here? Okay, because it carries deoxygenated blood. But the pulmonary veins and the pulmonary arteries are an exception. Arteries carry oxygenated blood, veins carry deoxygenated blood. But the pulmonary veins and the pulmonary arteries are the reverse. The pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood. This is the only exception to the rule. And the pulmonary arteries, which we will talk about in a couple of minutes. So these two pairs open into your right side. So the left side has 3, the right side has 2. Two pairs of openings of the pulmonary veins coming in. I will look at the picture in a bit. Now coming to the ventricles. What happens in ventricles? So these open, the blood oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood coming into the right and the left atria, they get into the ventricles, right? So as long as you understand what that is. Okay, so we'll talk about the valves through which the blood flows in just a few minutes. The ventricles, these are thick-walled. The left side receives from the left auricle and the right side receives from the right auricle. This is the heart. Right, this is the left, this is the right, these are the auricles, these are the ventricles. So the left side blood flows into the left ventricle. From the right side, blood flows into the right ventricle. Here is the septum between the two. Okay, so these are thick-walled, the pumping chambers, and these are the arteries where the receiving chambers, they are receiving heart. But the ventricles, these are the pumping chambers, right? Remember we said they are the pumping chambers. So that means the vessels coming out take blood away from the heart. So what are the openings? From the left side, the left ventricle. From the left ventricle arises your pulmonary arch. Pulmonary arch. Okay, and this one takes, because as you know, the heart is in between the lungs, right? So the blood doesn't have to travel very long. It has very short distance to go to. These get into the lungs from the, oh sorry, oh my God. Right. Okay. What is going on with me? Ugh. So from the right ventricle through the pulmonary arch, the deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs. From the left ventricle, this is a little more thicker and muscular than the right. Thicker and more muscular than the right. Why do you think that is? That is because it has to pump blood to all parts of the body. Parts of the body. So, where did it go? So that's why it is a little bit thicker and muscular. So what is the vessel that is taking all the blood? It is the Iotic Arch. We'll look at the picture in just a minute. The Iotic Arch comes out of the left ventricle and the Pulmonary Arch comes out of the right ventricle. Blood is taken to the lungs, and like I said, this is the only exception where the pulmonary artery here carries deoxygenated blood. And the Iotic Arch carries the oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. Okay, so to sum up, let's look at the picture so that we have a better idea. Oh, I should talk about the valves before I get into the, but here we go. I should still talk about the valves. Okay, let's finish off the valves and look at the picture. Okay. So we know that don't mind my drawing, people. Okay. So these are the auricles, the right, the left, the auricles, the ventricles. So what I am trying to tell you here are the valves present in the heart. Okay. So we know that the precaval vein, superior vena cava, is coming in, right? Precaval, carrying the deoxygen. I should do it with blue so that you understand that it's a deoxygenated blood. But this is where it is coming in. And the postcaval vein, which is coming from the bottom of the heart, bringing all the blood from all parts of the body in here. Here is a valve. It's called Estation Valve. Ooh. This is rudimentary. That means it has no function now. But during the fetal stage, this valve is a septum, right? Interauricular septum between these two. There is an opening here. Which is called fossa ovalis. And in the fetal stage, it is called foramen ovale. Now this one would direct blood into the left auricle in the fetal stages, not in the adult heart. It closes in us, but if it doesn't close, then it is called a patent foramen ovale. Okay. So, and the heart also has coronary veins, right? And the let me see the don't know if I have a picture. Do I see the coronary arteries here? You have the in the same way you have the coronary veins too. This carry blood to the heart wall, and deoxygenated blood needs to be carried out, right? And then it gets dumped into the right auricle here. So, but it all drains into a sinus, and then it opens into your right auricle. Sinus from all the coronary veins opens into your heart, into your right auricle, and that has a valve before it opens. It is called a valve of Thebesius. Remember the valves, okay? Eustachian is for the postcaval. The precaval doesn't have any valve. A precaval opens through Eustachian valve. The coronary veins open into the coronary sinus, and this opens into the right auricle through the valve called the valve of Thebesius. Okay, these are the two. Now, these two, the deoxygenated blood here and the oxygenated blood coming in through the pulmonary veins here, flow into your ventricles. Okay, so what are these valves called? There is a valve here. There is a, let's take, what color do I have? Blue. Is there a blue people? Or purple? Or yellow? Okay, and there's a valve here. There's a valve here. Okay, from the right auricle to right ventricle and the left auricle to left ventricle. So one is called from the right auricle to right ventricle. What is this called? I even showed you a cutout. Remember? You guys were all sleepy that day. This is the tricuspid valve. The right, remember, right. Now the left also has a valve. The left auricle. Into the left ventricle. It's called the bicuspid valve. Now what are these? Sorry, excuse me. What's the function of a valve? Valve allows blood to flow, not just blood, but valve's function is to allow the flow in only one direction. That is from the auricles to the ventricles. But remember, the left side, the valve is called tricuspid because it has three cusps. The left auricle, it has two cusps. Okay, so now these cusps, these valves, these are held down because we don't want, when the heart is pumping, we don't want the valves to move further, bulge into your auricles. So the ventricles, they have ridges. These are called columnae carneae. The internal wall of the ventricle is thrown into ridges called the columnae carneae. And some of them are pyramid shape or pyramid shape. These are called papillary muscles. Now these have strings attached. The right and the left. So here we have the valves, the bicuspid and the tricuspid. So these papillary muscles get attached to the valves, the bicuspid and the tricuspid valves. These are called chordae tendineae. This is so confusing right here. So let's see if we have a picture of it. That's the valve. Okay, so this is the fossa ovalis. Like I told you, this is the interauricular septum that you see. Of course, this is the tricuspid valve that goes from the right to the right auricle to the right ventricle. These are the pectinate muscles, ridges that you see. This is the Eustachian valve that covers the inferior vena cava, the tibiaceous wall that covers the sinus from the coronary veins entering into the right auricle. Okay, so here we go. So this is the tricuspid valve. See the three cusps. This is the bicuspid valve, two cusps, and we'll talk about the pulmonary and the pulmonary arch and the pulmonary arch and the aortic arch also has valves. These are semi-lunar valves. Okay, but let's see about the chordae tendineae and the columnae carnae. See these papillary muscles, the triangular ones. These are the columnae carnae, and the strings attached to the cusps. See this go from the papillary muscles all the way to the valve, so that when the heart pumps, this valve doesn't push into your auricle. These are called chordae tendineae. See, these are called the heartstrings. Now, back to the drawing board. We have the picture looks awful, people. Don't draw like me. And and then we have seen that. Where is it? The ventricles. Where did I write? The Iotic arches. Okay, anyway, from the left, from the right ventricle, what is the vessel that takes to the lungs? There the pulmonary arches arises. And it divides into two, goes to the two lungs, right and left. From the right ventricle, and from the left ventricle, arises the systemic arch, also called the Iotic arch. And this supplies blood to all parts of the body, goes into the systemic circulation. Now these two are attached in the fetus during the embryonic development in the fetus. It is open. It is called Ductus Arteriosus. Arteriosus. Okay, but in the adult, it is called, let us change that. In the adult, it is called Ligamentum Arteriosum. Ligamentum Arteriosum. Okay, this is rudimentary in the adult. But here in the fetus, it actually joins these two instead of going into the pulmonary arch, which is not developed in the fetus. It goes into systemic circulation. Okay, so let's see if we have a picture of that as well. Where is it? Where is it? See this? This is the ligamentum arteriosum. This red and blue, this is the deoxygenated, this is oxygenated, so that you can understand it better. This is coming out of your left ventricle here, and this is coming out of your right ventricle here. This is going into your lungs, the pulmonary arch, and this is coming out of here from the left ventricle, the oxygenated blood that has come from the lungs. Okay, so that's why it is red. And these two are connected by ligamentum arteriosum. That doesn't do anything in the adult, but during the fetal stage, it joins these two. Okay, because the lungs were not developed properly in the fetus. Now that is all about the internal structure of the heart, and this is where we're gonna stop. But before we're gonna stop, we are gonna look at the circulation. Look at this picture. This is the superior vena cava, the coming from the head, thorax, and the forelimbs, and this is the inferior vena cava collecting blood from the abdomen and downwards, coming into your right atrium or the auricle, and from the tricuspid valve, it gets into the right ventricle. From there, it is pumped to the two lungs on either side of the heart. Now from the heart, it gets in the lungs, they get oxygenated and come back through two pairs from the lungs into your left auricle that you see here. From here, the blood flows through into your left ventricle through the bicuspid valve, also called as mitral valve, and from there it gets into the systemic circulation through the aortic arch. Okay, so that's about the heart, the internal structure, and how the heart flows through it, and all the different valves that is present in it, and all the different vessels that come to the different chambers of the heart. Please draw the diagram and learn all of the new terms that you have come across. Okay, so that's about it. And there is an auricular appendage. There is an auricular appendage. See this? This is the appendage that they're talking about, and they think that it increases the volume of the atrium. There's a left atrial appendage also, okay, extending into your, well, they're not into your vessels, but they're right there between them. All right, well, we'll end the class there, and in the next class we'll talk about the conduction and how the heart contracts and the cardiac cycle. Okay, all right then, bye bye.